This is the new Longines Spirit Flyback, and today we're getting hands-on with this watch and covering everything you need to know about this model. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always, and today we're looking at the Longines Flyback Spirit, or Spirit Flyback. It's been a while since we've got hands-on and done an in-depth review of a beautiful watch, so I thought let's start at a very high starting bar with this Longines. So let's start with the basic specs, and then after the basic specs, we'll go over loves and hates of this watch, or changes of this watch. So this watch comes in at 42mm in diameter. And yes, that is quite chunky. However, I would say for my 6.5-inch wrists, 42mm watches are at the cusp of being too big, but they're not quite there. My Omega Seamaster comes in at 42, and I've got a couple of other watches that come in at about 41 to 40. So it's not too big for 6.5-inch wrists, although I would say it's maybe on the cusp. However, because it is a flyback model, you can understand that it has to be a little bit bigger to substantiate that movement. And when we talk about the bigger nature of this watch, we need to talk about the thickness, because it is a damn thick boy. It comes in at 17mm in thickness, which is absolutely unbelievably thick. It does sit really high off the wrist, and actually this just increases the whole size of this watch substantially. So this watch is definitely not for you slim wrist gang out there. When we look at the case and the bracelet of this watch, we can see that they're both made out of stainless steel. Now, with this model, with this flyback model, you do get to choose between a blue or a black. Now, you also have the choice between a NATO strap, a leather strap, or a bracelet. My personal favorite being the NATO, because I'm just a NATO guy, then the bracelet, and then the leather. For some reason, leather just doesn't really fit my aesthetic, especially when it comes to more sporty looking watches, which is what this is. I wouldn't pair it with a leather strap, but let me know if you agree with me in the comments. Now, the head of this watch has a combination between polished and brushed steel. The polished steel accentuates those lines and lugs running down the side of this model, and you can see it just looks and feels a little bit more expensive than the normal Longines Zulu time, and that's partially because it is, partially because it's got an upgraded movement. It's kind of like the bigger brother to the Longines Zulu time. And the Longines Zulu time was an incredible hit, so I can see why this is also pretty popular. Anyway, I totally digress. When we look at the bracelet, we can see that it tapers in really, really slightly, although it remains quite thick and it remains quite sturdy. And actually, the whole watch is pretty damn heavy. Now, it does have a 3-link approach, and it has 2 polished kind of sides to the center lug running down both sides to give it a bit of style. However, something that I would change about this watch is at the clasp, which is a deployant clasp just here, you have 2 polished edges running down the outside. Although aesthetically, that looks amazing, it looks great, and I wouldn't change it. If you think about what's most likely to scratch about a watch, firstly, for those desk divers like me out there that edit a lot, it's going to be the clasp of the watch, because you're dragging it across the table or the desk, whatever it might be. So that is most likely to get scratched. And when you pair that with polished, you're just going to be able to see those scratches a lot more. So I would like that polished edges of the deployant clasp there to be brushed. Now, as I said previously, this watch is a damn thick boy, and it also weighs substantially more than I thought it would. This is a good thing, and also some might see it as a negative. It's kind of personal preference, but let's get this on the scales and see exactly how much it weighs. According to Longines' website, it comes in about 178 grams. According to our scales, not our website, although we do stock them on the Chisholm Hunter website, which you can see through the link below, we say it comes in at about 180 grams. So we're saying it's heavier than Longines do. And on that note, it is time for the wrist check. What is on your wrist today? Please let me know in the comments. I love seeing all the weird and wonderful watches that you guys have on. Actually, I put a poll up on the Instagram, Chisholm Hunter Watches, the other day, and allowed you guys to send in your photos, and we reshared them to our story. And some of the watches were absolutely bonkers, like super, super cool. I currently have the Hamilton Khaki Field Expedition on, and this is a personal one for me. It's kind of pointing the way through the compass dial, or through the compass bezel, to a new chapter in my life. I have a new flat now, moving house, so yeah, personal one to me. This model has a pretty bulky, pretty large screw down crown, and it kind of has an hourglass look to it, following on from the iconic Longines hourglass. It kind of slopes down quite quickly, and actually this allows you to get your fingers in there a lot tighter and grippier, and it kind of just allows you to turn it a little bit easier. And if you can imagine you're a pilot for a second in, let's say, the Second World War, normally you have big, thick gloves on. Now, if you have big, thick gloves on, you need a pretty substantially big crown in order to turn it, because you're not going to be able to feel it as much. It's going to be a bit less grippy because it's not your actual fingers. So they kind of need to make this crown big to suit pilots, and I totally get that, so there's nothing that I can say bad about that. Now, you obviously have your two pushers, one at the top of the crown and one at the bottom. I'll go over the functionality of them in a second. You have sapphire crystal glass with scratch-resistant anti-reflective coating on either side. Technically speaking, and I know what you guys are going to say, technically speaking, that could scratch a little bit more. However, for visibility and taking photos, like Instagram photos, like we all do, it does look pretty cool. Now, my only experience with this kind of anti-reflective coating and scratches is my Amiga Seamaster, and I know I talk about it far too often. However, my Amiga Seamaster, I've had it for about 2 or 3 years, and I've not got one scratch on it, and that has the same anti-reflective coating on the top and the bottom. So I don't think it would be an issue unless you're really throwing your watch around. When we take a closer look at the bezel, we can see that the numerals and the markers come in white. However, there are little notches all the way along the bezel, little indentations along that bezel, which is quite unique, actually. And to be honest, I'm not sure how I feel about them. It's not something that I've seen before, not something that I've had enough time to kind of get my head around. I'd like to know what you guys think about those little notches. When we get into the face of this model, we can see that it's big, bold, and clean. The dial obviously comes in black, but you do have a blue to choose between if you want the blue model instead. And the hands and the indices, as well as the outer kind of circle that's going around the outside, comes in a kind of goldy color. Now, that gold plays against that black dial wonderfully, and it gives it more of a vintage feel, I would say. Now, it has the 5 stars at the bottom at the 6 o'clock mark. It has the word chronometer because it is obviously a chronometer, and Flyback at the 12 o'clock mark, or just below the 12 o'clock mark, is the Longines logo. Now, something to note is that these hands in that outer circle, as well as everything else that has that kind of goldy touch to it, is actually a PVD bronze material that they've used. So it's not actual gold, it's PVD bronze. However, it looks pretty damn like gold. At the left-hand side, we have a sub-dial for the 60-second mark, and also on the right, we have about where the 3 o'clock mark would be, we have a 30-minute sub-dial. So it has a hell of a lot of features on here for the price that this watch comes in at. To top off, it's COSC certified, and we'll cover the movement now. The movement on this watch is the caliber L791. This, of course, is a fully automatic movement with flyback functionality. It's a self-winding movement beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour with a monocrystalline silicon balance spring, which has a power reserve of up to about 68 hours. And now that we've covered the majority of this watch, it's time for 3 loves and 3 changes that I would make to this watch. Let's begin with the changes. So the first change that I would make is the thickness. I would prefer this watch to come in about 14 to 13 mil in thickness, but having said that, I can't have all. The second change I would make is on the bezel. I would get rid of those little grooves, the kind of minute little indentations, square indentations. That's just my personal preference. And thirdly, I would get this watch in a different color. Maybe a panda dial? That'd be cool. And now we get to 3 loves of this watch. The first love is, well, it's a flyback. It has flyback functionality in a Longines model, which is pretty damn affordable. That is incredible. That is truly amazing. The next love is that we have a quick release functionality on the back of the bracelet here if you want to change your strap over really quickly, which is a really, really nice touch. And the final love is when you look at the dial of this watch, the way that that PVD bronze plays against that dial is absolutely beautiful. I also like the fact that it has a bidirectional bezel and a couple of other key features. However, this is 3 loves and 3 changes. Not Harrison's rules, it's the rules of the game. And that is the in-depth review of this Longines Spirit Flyback. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please consider hitting that subscribe button to join the Chisholm Hunter community. You guys are truly amazing. Or fire onto our Instagram, Chisholm Hunter Watches, and drop us a follow. We post watches, pretty much. And I'll see you guys in a couple of days.